Hey guys, welcome to the Cinema Corral. This is the section of my YouTube channel where I talk about the latest releases and let you know if they're worth your time and money. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the movies that came out the week of July 4th, 2019. That includes SpiderMan Far From Home and Midsommar. So let's begin. Alright, Midsommar. This is the latest film from Aster. He directed Hereditary last year, and I absolutely loved Hereditary. It's just so intense that I've had a hard time getting the courage up to rewatch the film. That scene, if you've seen the movie, you know what scene I'm talking about, is just wow. But we're not talking about Hereditary here, we're talking about Midsommar. How does this compare to Hereditary? And in fact, I'm going to try and keep from comparing it to Hereditary as much as possible because that's not fair, but as a second feature-length film, Ari Aster is on a winning streak here. This is a fantastic film. Now, I know that the marketing is kind of selling it more like a horror film, and it's really more of an art house film, which I absolutely loved, and I'm down for that. I love that. This movie is also incredibly insane with the things that it does in the best way possible. I had a blast watching this even when it got super uncomfortable. I don't want to spoil anything because I don't want to taint the experience for somebody else, but I gotta say, I absolutely loved this movie. Now, I will say, it is a little bit of a slow burn. Now, that's not always a bad thing, because here, much like Hereditary, the payoff is absolutely worth it. But they probably could have slimmed down maybe about 20 minutes off the runtime, and it would have flowed a little bit more smoothly and gotten us from point A to B a little bit more effectively. There is so much foreshadowing going on. The beginning frame of this film is a mural, and you kind of just think, oh cool, that's a nice mural or whatever, a little weird, but alright, here's the first scene. I want to go back and rewatch this movie to look at all the foreshadowing, because everything that is eventually paid off in the film is foreshadowed in very small, minute ways. The cinematography here is outstanding. I took a vacation this weekend, and throughout the entire weekend, all of these images from the film just kept popping into my mind. A lot of them are so strikingly gorgeous. Florence Pugh plays Dani. She's the main character of this film. I absolutely loved her. I really enjoyed her in Fighting With My Family, so it's not really a surprise that I enjoyed her here. I'm glad to see her getting more stuff like this. I want to see more from her. I think she's a very talented actress, and she does a good job of portraying somebody who's dealing with not only a personal loss, but dealing with the grief of being in a relationship that just isn't working. When you see her break down and cry, you believe it and you feel her pain. And that's what this movie is ultimately about. It's about pain, and it's about finding positive ways to cope and seeking solace with support groups. And I think that's a great message. Apparently, Ari Aster wrote this movie after coming out of a relationship that ended pretty badly from what I'm led to believe. And the entire thematic element of this movie absolutely makes sense when you have that information. Not that this movie doesn't make sense without that information, but knowing that going in, it really makes me appreciate this film a whole lot more. Much like the cinematography, the score is also very beautiful, and there's a lot of cool little things going on in the background that really add to the experience. A lot of this features them tripping on these weird drugs, and so if you pay attention to the background, you can kind of see the mountains and the grass just kind of waving, and it's really cool. It probably isn't really that hard to pull off. It's probably something you could just do in After Effects, but it's done effectively here that you feel like you're also on this drug trip with them. I also really enjoyed that there is a comedy element to this film. It's not over-the-top comedy, but when it is inserted, it's very much appreciated, and it absolutely adds a sense of levity to the film when things get a little too heavy. The supporting cast, for the most part, is pretty great. There are some really neat visual effects going on. I really am just blown away with this film. I can't wait to watch it again. I can't wait to buy it on Blu-ray. I've already got a poster for this movie, and I'm very thrilled that I didn't have to share an auditorium with a bunch of people who were unappreciative of the film and laughing at the film every 5 minutes because they didn't understand what was going on. If you like art house films, absolutely go see this film. If you loved Hereditary, you're probably going to like this one as well. Ari Aster is growing to be one of my new favorite directors. I'm giving Midsommar an A. I absolutely enjoyed it. It's probably going to be in my top 10 of the year. Alright, next and last up, we got Spider-Man Far From Home, and this is the long-awaited sequel to Spider-Man Homecoming. I liked this one. I really did. I'm a big fan of Mysterio. I've been a fan of him since I saw him in, I think, what was it, the Spider-Man 1 PlayStation 2 game? Either that or it was Spider-Man 2, one of those two games. I loved his costume, I loved everything about him, I just think he's a really cool character. And they do so well with Mysterio here. Hi, this is Future Mario. I forgot to record this bit while I was doing the audio for this video, but this might be considered a little bit spoilery, but it's really not, so ultimately it's your choice if you want to continue listening through. Okay, bye. This isn't really much of a spoiler because Mysterio's been around since, like, Amazing Spider-Man number 13. Mysterio's a villain. Mysterio's a villain. And so when he's using his bag of tricks, so to speak, it's just incredible. There's an amazing sequence where he's essentially twisting reality and just messing with Peter. That's one of the greatest sequences in the film. I loved the action sequences in this film. They're smooth, they're fluid, you can tell what's going on, there aren't too many cuts, and they remind me of something straight out of a comic book, which is exactly what I want to see out of a Spider-Man film. Unfortunately, though, this movie does have the same problem that I had with Spider-Man Homecoming, and that's that we spend a little too much time with the high school character. And while I'm fine with a Spider-Man movie showing Peter Parker in high school, because that's the thing that really makes Spider-Man a relatable character, is that you see him, he's kind of a dork. You know, he's not really popular at school, he's picked on by bullies, he comes up pretty short in the love department. That's what makes him relatable. And I get that we're supposed to see that in a Spider-Man film, because the alter ego is just as important as the superhero identity. But did we really need to spend as much time with these characters as we did? Maybe, yeah, you could argue that they are just as important, but I feel like the writing for them wasn't as strong as the stuff with Spider-Man and Mysterio and all the superhero stuff. A lot of people have pointed it out that the jokes for the high schoolers aren't really that funny, and I kind of have to agree, but I did get a couple laughs out of them. It doesn't break the movie for me. The first act is definitely the weakest part, but once we get into the second and third acts, things really pick up. It's a high-octane superhero thrill, and that's what really saves this movie for me. Again, the first act isn't terrible, it's just not on par with the second and third act. I feel like a couple more revisions might have helped out, and I didn't entirely feel the weight of Peter's situation. I know that they were really hitting at that in this movie, that Peter's going to have to start taking on a lot more responsibility, that he feels some sort of obligation to fill Tony's shoes, and while it is done relatively well enough to where you do feel for the character, I didn't entirely feel the weight of his situation. Again, it's not a bad movie. It's a pretty good movie. I enjoyed myself. It was very fun. I had a great time at the theater. In fact, my least favorite part about seeing this movie were the kids in the aisle that I happened to be sitting in. It's a good movie. It really is. It's just a couple small things that they could probably tweak, and hopefully they tweak it for the third Spider-Man movie. I'm assuming they're going that route. Tom Holland is a pretty young guy. He seems very energetic to be Spider-Man. It must be the role of a lifetime for him. He seems very excited about it, and while I do have some minor complaints about the movie, I loved it. I really did. I think I liked this one more than Homecoming, and Homecoming is pretty good. Like I said, it does have that problem with the writing with the high school characters. That's something I feel that they could work on, but it doesn't ruin the movie for me. I'm going to go ahead and give Spider-Man Far From Home a B+. It's like, if I were doing a percentage, it's like right there. It's so close. It's like at an 89% for me. It's so close to being an A. But some of the writing and a little bit of the pacing is off. Other than that, it's a great time at the theaters. It's a fun superhero movie. Go see it. So that's all I got for this episode of Cinema Corral. Like I said, I was out of town this past weekend. I went to Florida SuperCon, where I met Jodie Benson, the voice of Ariel in The Little Mermaid. Brett Iwan, he voices Mickey Mouse for basically everything that Disney does. I met George Newbern, who voiced Superman on Justice League Unlimited, Justice League vs. the Fatal Five, and basically any animated Superman property. And I met Rico Browning, who was in the suit for the underwater sequences in Creature from the Black Lagoon. I had a great time. It was a long, eventful weekend, dropped a lot of money, got a lot of Funko Pops, got some comic books. I had a great time. I'm not sure if any of you particularly care, but I figured I'd share anyway. So until next time, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you can get notified every time I upload, and I will see you next time.